Well, I thought I'd talk today a little bit about the process question period. Question period really dominates the hill here, but in actual fact it's only 45 minutes of what happens throughout the day. Much more of the work is actually focused on committees and the debates that happen in the House, but we get a lot of questions about question period, so I thought I'd talk a little bit about the process. Well, today is Friday. I got to lead off questions, but Friday's tough because your timing's really tight. Question period begins at 11 with member statements, and then 11:15 where the actual questions begin. Around 9:30 you get a draft of the question which has to be totally rewritten. About 10:30 you actually deliver it in rehearsal, and then you've got to go and actually deliver it a little less than an hour later. So it's all in a very tight time frame. So for me, practicing a question, first you start with the draft question which has to be rewritten. And then you start delivering it. And I do that with my staff and get good feedback and suggestions, and we sort of bounce ideas off one another so that the question morphs and eventually becomes the question you're going to ask. Hopefully, and generally if it's not Friday, then you get a little bit of time to be able to practice the question a few times to make sure you're going to get the lines out right and to make sure that you're not just staring at the page the whole time that you're reading the question.
The scandal involving the in-and-out scheme just keeps getting worse for this government. Now we learn the Data Crime Unit of the RCMP is analyzing computer records seized during the raid on Conservative Party headquarters. This is the latest Conservative attempt to dodge investigators, and this time they're claiming solicitor-client privilege. That won't wash. Their Conservative lawyer, Paul Lepso, was himself a key designer of the in-and-out scheme and may be subject to prosecution. If this government still thinks the scheme is legal, why do they refuse to cooperate with the RCMP and Elections Canada?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member has what we call no shame. He's spent an entire term in Parliament so far inventing imaginary scandals.
Well, the first thing that I think people note about question period is that it's more question period than answer period. You're not generally hearing a lot of answers coming from the government, and that can be a little bit frustrating. The other thing that's tough is that you only have 35 seconds in order to be able to ask your question and then your supplemental. So you have to condense any thoughts or any complicated issue into 35 seconds and make it as snappy as it can be so that it gets people's attention.
Mr. Speaker, this wasn't an imaginary raid. It's time for answers from that government. Mr. Speaker, it's one thing to cite solicitor-client privilege when they are under police investigation for fraud and then hire a lawyer. But when the lawyer is actually one of the kingpins that helps structure the fraud, privilege goes out the window. First they tried to threaten Elections Canada, then they sued them. And when that didn't work, they smeared them. And now, since the courts have ruled their arguments irrelevant, they try this new ploy. No more excuses. No more stonewalling. When will this government cooperate with the RCMP and Elections Canada? How many more police raids will it take before we get some answers?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Well, so my questioning today was about the in-and-out scandal, and both the in-and-out scandal and the economy have been dominating question period this week. In fact, it's been the source of most questions. Today I was talking about the fact that the Conservative lawyer was trying to use client solicitor privilege to say he couldn't answer questions or talk about the in-and-out scandal. Well, that's one thing if you've been hired after the fact and you're getting advice, giving advice after the fact. But when you were involved potentially in developing the scandal and creating it, then that privilege just doesn't wash. It can't be used. And that's the comment I was making today.
The Honourable Member for Ajax Hickory.
Let me quote December 15th, 2005 email released with the search warrant, written by Michael Donison, National Executive Director, and the House Leader's top advisor. Quote, I have been speaking with Paul Lepso. There are contiguous ridings that we can include on the list. None of these campaigns can or will spend very much and could make their caps available. Use space in ridings, overspend nationally, break the rules, try to steal an election. That's this lawyer's advice. Before the next police raid, will the government simply stop the lame spin and cooperate?
So I'm back to the riding now. It's Friday, and looking forward to a quick weekend back in the riding before heading back here yet again to the House on Monday. Look forward to talking to you then.